In the kingdom of Okpala, nestled between the rivers and the great forests of Igbo land, there reigned a mighty king, King Obinna. His reign lasted for 8 years, and during that time he built a kingdom renowned for its wealth and strength. The people of Okpala lived in peace, and the king was adored by all, for he was a king who always made sure his people lacked for nothing. But there was one flaw in King Obinna, his pride. The more power he gained, the more his ego grew. He believed no one could rival him, not even the gods. He considered himself invincible, the chosen ruler of the universe. This pride eventually led him to believe that he could marry multiple women from different villages to solidify his rule and claim dominance over his kingdom and beyond. One fateful day, in a grand ceremony, King Obinna married 7 beautiful women from different villages, each one a symbol of his power. His first wife, Adaobi, was the daughter of the most powerful chief in the land. The second, Ugochi, came from a village of skilled warriors. The third, Ifeoma, was known for her intelligence and wisdom. The fourth, Shinonso, was a healer, capable of curing any ailment. The fifth, Enkiru, was a dancer whose movements could move even the gods. The sixth, Ngozi, was a renowned farmer whose crops were the envy of all. And the seventh, Oluchi, was a singer with a voice so sweet that even the birds would stop to listen. The entire kingdom rejoiced, for the king's power seemed unshakable. The wives, though from different walks of life, lived together in harmony, each one contributing her unique gifts to the palace. But as time passed, the king's pride grew. He began to neglect his wives, each one feeling more isolated and less important in his eyes. Adeobi, the first wife, was ignored for her beauty. Ugochi, the warrior, was pushed aside as her strength seemed unnecessary to the king. Ifeoma, the wise one, was no longer consulted for advice. Chinonso, the healer, was disregarded, for the king felt he no longer needed her services. Nkiru, the dancer, felt her movements were no longer appreciated. Ngozi, the farmer, was ignored, her crops now taken for granted, and Oluchi, the singer, was left unheard, her songs fading into silence. One evening, as King Obinna rested in his palace, a mysterious figure appeared before him. It was a ghostly woman, her beauty ethereal and unsettling. She was draped in a flowing robe that seemed to shimmer in the moonlight. Her eyes, deep and knowing, met the king's gaze. "Obinna," the ghostly woman said, "your pride has blinded you. You have forsaken your wives, and in doing so, you have forsaken your kingdom. You think yourself invincible, but I am here to show you the consequences of your actions." Before King Obinna could speak, the woman vanished into thin air, leaving only a cold breeze in her wake. The king, terrified, wondered who she was and what her warning meant. The next morning, chaos struck. One by one, King Obinna's wives began to suffer strange and devastating fates. Adeobi, the first wife, grew ill with a fever so high that no medicine could cure her. Ugochi, the warrior, fell from her horse and broke her leg, and no healer could mend it. Ifeoma, the wise one, became silent, as if all the knowledge in her mind had been stolen. Chinonso, the healer, was struck with a strange affliction, causing her hands to tremble so violently that she could no longer tend to the sick. Enkiru, the dancer, lost her grace, her movements stiff and clumsy. Ngozi, the farmer, watched as her crops withered and died overnight. And Oluchi, the singer, lost her voice, unable to produce a single note. The kingdom, once thriving under King Obinna's rule, began to wither. The people were frightened as they witnessed the downfall of the king's household. Rumors spread that the ghostly woman had cursed the king and his wives for their pride and neglect. As the years went on, the kingdom of Okpala fell into disarray. King Obinna, once a mighty ruler, became a shadow of his former self, haunted by the consequences of his arrogance. The wives, now broken and abandoned, could only watch as their once glorious lives crumbled. The village where they once danced, sang, healed, and grew bountiful crops became a place of sorrow and despair. In the final days of his reign, King Obinna, regretful and weary, called for his wives to gather before him. His voice was hoarse, and his eyes were filled with remorse. "I have failed you all," he said, his pride now gone. "I believed I was invincible, that nothing could break me. But I was wrong. My pride has cost me everything. I have lost my wives, my kingdom, and my dignity. As the wives gathered before him, they wept for the man who had once been their king. But it was too late.